Hello, we want to finish up the series today on identity formation. Part four, from wounded to commissioned, finding pain, finding purpose after pain. And of course, we've referred and we've referenced Exodus chapter 3, verses 10 through 12, Exodus chapter 4, 1 through 17. At some point in my life, I stripped everything away. I thought about no titles, no business, no platform, and I asked myself a question. What am I actually here for? And as I began thinking about that, and I'll say this was over the course of time, years, the answer kind of surprised me. One of the gifts that I have is I see people who've been made invisible. They've been made invisible by systems, by trauma, by theology, by family, by race. I see them and I name what happened to them, and I help them see themselves again. That's what I do in my speaking. That's what I do in the therapy room. That's what I do when I speak on YouTube and in various places. That's not just my wound, in other words. That is my commission. Another way of looking at it is that God took my wound, did some work in healing, and help to make it a part of my story. Here's the truth that I want to leave us with. Liberation without formation produces dependency. Liberation without formation produces dependency. God just doesn't free people so they can wander. We are not only healed from something, we are being formed into something. Commissioning is the final step of that identity formation. When we look back at Exodus, we see that God was saying to Moses, I will send you to Pharaoh. And Moses responded with the question that many of us ask, and I know I've asked that question plenty of times. Who am I? Why should you send me? Notice what God didn't do. God did not list Moses' qualifications to say who he was. God didn't fix Moses' insecurity, and God did not erase Moses' history. God just simply said, I will be with you. Identity is not grounded in confidence, it is actually grounded in presence. Now, Moses offers all sorts of excuses. What if they don't believe me? I'm not a good speaker. Please send someone else. Now, God doesn't shame him when that happens. God just equips him. The staff becomes a sign. Aaron becomes a partner in ministry, and weakness is accommodated and not erased. God forms Moses as he is, not as he wishes he were. I would say probably because God understands who we are before we even understand who we are. What does commissioning produce? What are some of the results then of healthy identity formation? Because that's where we've been headed to. When identity has been formed and not imposed, we see fruit. Number one, we see a stable sense of self. We're no longer easily shattered by approval or rejection because we understand who we are on the inside. Number two, there is some agency. We can act instead of reacting. We are not driven solely by fear or survival. In other words, our values drive us, our goals drive us, our decisions drive us. In other words, we have the agency to create the environments we want to create and live the life that God has us to live because we act with integrity instead of reacting out of pain or fear. Number three, there's resilience. Failure does hurt when something happens, but it doesn't destroy us. Failures, I think, it might have been John Maxwell that talked about failing forward. In other words, we understand that failure is just a stop on the way. It doesn't destroy us because our worth is not performance based. Our worth is more so tied into, are we doing the mission that God has for us? Are we using our gifts, talents, and abilities? Failure hurts, but it doesn't destroy us. Number four, we have an accurate self perception. It's not inflated, but it's also not diminished. And I think that part is key because, in my experience in working with a lot of people, especially those who are in faith, sometimes we're taught that humility, what we're taught of what humility is actually diminishment of who we are. We know both our gifts and we also know our limits. Number five, capacity for intimacy. We can be known because we know ourselves. We can be vulnerable because we know ourselves. There's security in knowing who we are, and why that's important because the character attacks don't phase us as much, criticisms don't phase us as much because we know who we are and how we were made. And number six, generativity. We can form others without controlling them. We don't need people to stay small for us to feel safe. I want that to sit there for a moment. We don't need people to be small because we understand who we are. And when we understand who we are, we can help people understand who they are and let them grow and let their light shine also. That's what healthy identity does. Harmful identity formation is done to us for somebody else's benefit. Helpful identity formation is done with us for our flourishing. Moses spent 40 years forming a nation's identity, not just with laws, but also with story. Every year, the Passover story was told. We were slaves in Egypt. God brought us out. Same story. Every year for thousands of years, empires rose, empires fell. They were in captivity, they were out of captivity. In either case, the story survived. Jewish identity survived exile, diaspora, and the Holocaust because the story was never allowed to die. And that is the power of formation. And that is why your story matters. Your story matters because whatever tried to erase you does not get the last word. I'm going to say that again and let it sit there. Your story matters because whatever tries to erase you does not get the last word. We aren't just people who are wounded. We are also people who carried wisdom. We are someone who carries wisdom now. Now, here's the truth. You're not obligated to lead everyone, but you are responsible for what you touch. Your presence forms people. Your words form people. Your silences form people. So here's the question that I want to leave us as we close this series. What identity am I forming in the people that I touch? And whose purpose does it serve? Does it serve mine? Does it serve their purpose? Or something greater than both? This has been a four-part series on identity formation from the book of Exodus. We've talked about how identity is constructed, how systems break identity, how God rebuilds identity, and how healed people are commissioned to form others. That work doesn't end here. It begins here. That closing question one more time. What identity am I forming in the people I touch? Whose purpose does it serve? Is it serving mine? Is it serving theirs? Or is it serving something greater than both? This is William Hemphill, thanking you for listening to this series. If you'd like to know more about me and my work, please look in the description. You can reach me at admin1@faithandfamilyempowerment.com. If you're interested in the book, The Confidence Walk, Silencing Your Inner Critic So You Can Walk in Consistent Confidence, please go to the link, www.confidencewalk.net. As we close, remember this: love God, love people, and love yourself. Take care. God bless you.